Alrighty, Jim Ventura here. Happy almost start to the fall. It's time for a new storytelling video. I just did my September-October column, and it is a brand new one. So I'm going to do a live read of that for anyone interested in hearing the story. Quick explanation. The piece is called Nice to Meet You Again for the First Time. And basically it's about how we recognize other souls and essence and when they come back into our life and what that's about and where that may stem from. So, of course, if you like the video, give me an I like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff so that I can get my messages out further. And with no further ado, I'm going to dive in and read the new column. All right, so again, this column is called Nice to Meet You Again for the First Time. So growing up in the suburbs of Long Island in the late 70s and 80s was very fortunate. Our neighborhood had some permanent human fixtures and always a revolving door of new neighbors coming in. More often than not, the new arrivals had kids. My friends and I would curiously size up their belongings as they unloaded from the moving trucks, but also look to see if the kids were in our age bracket. Sometimes they were just annoying babies, yet a surprising amount were around our age. We would describe how, if at all, friendly we would be. We would decide how, if at all, friendly we would be with the newbies. The ones we did become friends with were, of course, brand new faces, but familiar in some ways, too. The quick bonds that often formed were a bit remarkable. It was like they were meant to be there, but we didn't consciously think about how or why they showed up. It required little effort and mostly enthusiasm and excitement to introduce the new kids to the neighborhood. We inevitably filled them in on the cool neighbors, the crazy ones, the ones to watch out for, and what we did for fun. Sometimes they would just become an extension of the group we already had, and other times they would take the role for a while of one of our best friends. This might create some turmoil, even jealousy for previous best friends. You had less time for or discarding some in the process. Well, it's just part of shifting loyalties. For me, this was generally focused on who was the most fun, who I was attracted to in one way or another. The same pattern was part of my school years from elementary school through college. The placement of someone next to you in homeroom or in gym class or any class for that matter was at times a quick opening of doors. Sometimes initially began with having a little crush on your new friend, and at times it was even reciprocal. Most notably for me, and I suspect much of the population in general, it actually didn't matter whether the individual was male or female and was rarely about actual sexual contact, especially in the preteen years, and more about an unexplained connection. The reality of human beings having some elements of natural bisexual tendencies or platonic feelings that are still notably fervent is even more clear when we're younger. We tend to over-sexualize this aspect of reality and see this through a limited lens versus true multi-layered aspects of why we are drawn to other people. Chemistry goes far beyond such simplicity as a sexual attraction. It often includes being asexual, but still having an intense love for another person. You can see this so clearly when two 11-year-olds are best friends. Whether male and female, female and female, or male to female, it can seem like they're inseparable and they truly adore each other, quite simply because they do. There were many silly childhood songs with taunts like Johnny and Mary sitting in a tree, Kissing. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes little Johnny in a baby carriage. This same joke, or variations of it, were based on a lack of understanding of our human need to have a close partner. Similar comments were often used to poke fun at really close same-sex relationships as well. We move out of our teens and become older, we tend to use creative descriptive words like bromance. I saw this instant pull of meant to be friends in the different restaurants I worked in my late teens, 20s, and early 30s. There were young men and women, and once my best friend for years when I was 20 was a 43-year-old woman. I was immediately drawn to. We would sneak away on a break or decide to meet for lunch or a drink after work, and this would happen very quickly. The magnetic pull for me was triggered on occasion at the gyms I worked out in, events I attended, clubs I was part of, and other unique places. The process, while always different, still had a thread of noticeable patterning. It felt like you were attempting to rapidly fill each other in on your lives so far. Often you'd find similarities or even extreme disparities that you were equally excited by. Whether the affinity was just for a few weeks, months, or even years, there were often instant glue. Some type of chemistry was always common. You may or may not have actually found the person attractive, but the urge to hang out was always strong. For me, many of the people I was drawn to had an almost instant respect for, and they were just simply appealing to be around. And most importantly for me, they got my weird sense of humor and sometimes even matched it. When you step back and analyze the process, it's truly astonishing, and clearly not simply by chance. The way life, the universe, spirit, God, or whatever term one may prefer, orchestrates family moves, school changes, the pull to be in the same restaurant, office, gym, etc., is unquestionably magical. When I left New York in my mid-20s, I left a fairly close family, group of friends, and my sense of security behind. It was scary, but I still knew I needed to make the change. For a number of reasons, I needed to do this. Some reasons were immediately obvious, and others became clear later on. The apartment complex, gym I joined, along with my new restaurant and job, brought a whole new group of friends, and even family to me, rapidly. I would inevitably create a support group in just a few months, and while they were technically new faces, many were quite familiar to me as well. I personally see no contradiction in this seeming duality. What is actually happening when we meet brand new people that are new in one way but are oddly familiar or just seem to be perfectly fit at the time? There are numerous ways to look at this. One is karmic bonds. When we begin to understand that we do indeed reincarnate and have many lifetimes as we evolve, learn, grow, we're bound to have souls we've been with before. They may be in different bodies in different times and places, yet the pull of essence is familiar. We may know some souls possibly as friends in one lifetime, enemies in another, part of the same family, as parent and child, co-workers on projects, or even romantically. This can explain the familiarity and the urge to be around them again. We're rarely conscious of the specific reasons, but we are pulled just the same. This can also account for the very common pull of feeling that there's a rush to seemingly catch up with each other. Outside of family configurations, body type attraction, whether sexual or just that we feel comfortable with the other person, is often part of the pull to reconnect. A belief in reincarnation or a lack of belief has little to do with the process. Another valid point of view just may be compatible astrology, wiring, or aura leaves. That's a term from the Michael teachings. We may be drawn to others because they reflect a similar level of current evolution or soul age. The experience can even be viewed as meetings directed by your higher self to help each other to complete some possible karmic interaction. In some cases, it may also be some not so positive or even uncomfortable karmic exchange. Another point of view is that instant familiarity is because a future version of yourself in this lifetime will be with this individual soul, and you are in a sense reaching back in time, directing you to each other, making sure you meet. This explanation gets into the true nature of time and how in some ways it can be viewed from the perspective that all time is actually simultaneous, but still experienced sequentially. Some of these ideas, or all of them, can be accurate. But what they all share in common is the need to connect and to validate the contact. Some of our more intense meetings may be planned between lives, before we are physically born. Again, the complexity of what drives this is at times hard to fully understand. Fortunately, we don't need to understand this for it to work. In a similar way that we don't have to focus on all the actions required to make your heartbeat or any of our organs work, the universe handles the intricate details of meetings and connections beautifully. I think many of us are led to believe that if a relationship, whether friendship, working one, romantic, or otherwise, goes sour or ends, it has somehow failed. Nothing could be further from the truth. Every individual we meet, however long or brief, impacts who we are. Maybe they help us reflect aspects of what is best in them and bring those excellent parts more into play in our own lives. Maybe there are inevitably difficult teachers who show us something reflecting in ourselves that we need to let go of. Or they may be uncomfortably teaching us what not to do or not to let ourselves become. Often in many of our affiliations, over time we inevitably drift apart for any number of reasons. At times, previously appealing relationships may end in unexpected ways, unexplained ways, or even ugly ways. Even if we had a good vibe or inseparable for years, we may change or drift apart, or simply just outgrow the need to be together. Some relationships go through breakups and occasionally may even reunite again. And at other times, the relationship has served its purpose and needs to come to an end because further contact may prove unwise. The Viking runestone of fertility, known as Inguz, speaks of this aspect. Quote, "You may now be required to free yourself from a rut, habit, or relationship, from some deep cultural or behavioral pattern, some activity that was quite proper to the self you are now leaving behind." All of our associations have value. When any partnership comes to an end for whatever reason, it's the idea that it all went wrong somehow that can cause us pain. Focusing on the amazing aspects of how it came together, whatever its value was, even if brief, takes us back into a wiser and more positive perspective. And by allowing the next and maybe even better connection to inevitably show up, is where both wisdom and excitement, just like we playfully had when we were children, keep the game eternally fun. All right, so there's my column about that familiarity of meeting souls we've ultimately known before. And, I'm going to go into more detail, keep the video as short as I can, but, if you check out my radio show on Blog Talk Radio, I often, after the live read, go into more detail about the column or the subject. So I'll probably do that in the next couple of months. And again, if you enjoy the videos, check out my previous videos. I got about 35 of them. And like, subscribe, and wishing everybody a happy start to the fall. Cheers.